All right, well, thank you everybody for coming today. Let me add Martha real quick. We're going to discuss, how the group project's going and, how group dynamics and all that stuff are working out. We'll talk about the next group assignment that's coming up, upcoming class assignments, and then you should have all received an email from me today. Okay, good. So a couple head nods. All right, so it went through. So that assignment we are going to look at in more detail. That's not due until March 24th. But I know some of you are very busy, have jobs or like to travel or have kids or whatever it is. And I just want to give you a full month to work on it. So no one's falling behind for that, or, you and your partner can't find a time to meet. So we'll discuss that assignment, and then we'll just briefly discuss leadership a little bit, because that's the topic we're talking about today. And then next week we'll meet again and we'll talk about stress in the workforce, which I think is a really important topic in today's society with everything going on. So we'll talk about that. And then it's already spring break. So before I start, I know we haven't met in a few weeks. So does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to make before I just start yakking away? All right. At any time, feel free to interrupt me. I do not mind. So let me pull up our Canvas slides. Okay, so I don't know if you can believe it already. We are already in module 6. This month is throwing me off because I still don't believe February 29th exists. So I keep thinking the month's ending. I'm like, what do you mean we still go to the 29th? So have a couple more days in February, then we're in March. And so this week we're going to discuss leadership. And the activities did have to change a little bit this week. Not sure if anyone's done this yet or not. So correct me if I'm wrong if it's changed a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is go on this IHI module and discussion. And it used to be really neat. They would give you like this module you would complete, and you could get like a certificate at the end for your training. And then they just made it now where it's not free anymore. Okay, good. A couple of you have done this already. Perfect. So I'll just talk about this real briefly. So if you go on this page in front of it, I have this website here for you, and you can see if you are interested in taking more trainings, there might be additional free ones, or if there's something you are interested in and want to pay for it, feel free to do that. But know that if you're struggling at any point, do not pay for anything. I do not want that to happen. What I did find is 3 free modules. Let me just make sure they're all working again. Yep. And there might even be new ones. So for example, this one's about providing age-friendly care to older adults. So maybe this is a topic that you're really interested in. So you're just going to click on that link and you're just going to complete the course. They all take about an hour-ish, an hour and 15 minutes to complete. And you might just learn a few things, like say you work in healthcare, or you're taking care of an older adult in your family, or you're just really interested in aging. This might be a really fun one for you to take and to learn a few things. And then once you're done with that, you're just going to write a reflection in the discussion board about like what you learned and things like that. Let me go back a bit. So then the other one is anti-racism work, supporting the journey of hearts, minds, and action. And this one I think is an hour and 35 minutes, so a little longer, but if you have the time. I know students in the past have really liked this one if this is a topic of interest to them. So I think you can't click on these right away because you need to go in order for this one. And then the first one that I actually have on the list is just an introduction to healthcare improvement. So if you are in healthcare, this might be a good one for you. Or if you just want to learn more about healthcare improvement, that would be a fun one for you to complete as well. So I know it says here add certificates of completion. You might not get one. I don't think you get one anymore. So don't panic I don't think you get one anymore at the end. So I can delete that. So basically you don't even have to register for an account or anything. Just go through and write your comments in the discussion board. So that's what we have for that. And module 6 quiz, and then just the leadership discussion board. And so for this, I actually give you the opportunity to pick what you want to talk about. And so I want you to pick something that you're interested in, right? Just a minimum of 5 sentences, and don't forget to respond to a peer. pick someone who picks something the same as you if you want to go in more depth with it, or pick someone who picks something completely different so you can see what they had to say about it or provide new perspective there. You don't get it. Okay, thank you, Desiree. So no, you don't get the certificate. So sorry about that. Bummer, but still hopefully something that you will enjoy doing. Let's see. Okay. Way to be a rock star, Desiree, and get all that stuff done. All right, so that's all that we have this week. I know that students typically enjoy the leadership module and then the one next week as well. So hopefully you'll find the material before spring break to be exciting for you. Okay, thank you for posting that. Good to know. All right. So let me pull up my slides real quick and we will discuss some upcoming assignments. All right, so I just went over everything that's due. Oh, goodness. October 1st, you have plenty of time to work on that. That should say, I think, March 3rd. Close enough, right? October 1st, March 1st. So March 1st, you're going to complete everything that I just shared with you on Canvas. And then next Sunday, we'll go into this one a little bit. I'll stop my slide share, is our next group assignment. And I do just want to say this again, this is a group project. I know there was some confusion from some groups about it being an individual or group project, but keep saying this, it definitely is a group project. You all have your assigned groups. I sent emails out first or second week of the semester sharing who your group was. So there shouldn't be any confusion on that, especially since our first assignment was due. So the next thing we're going to do is complete a vision, mission, values, and objectives slide. And then we're going to have another activity that's due March 24th. And I just want to emphasize this is completely different from your group project and completely different from your role. So this is just something brand new and fresh. You're going to have one partner for this class and everyone's going to be doing the same assignment. So probably just confused you all even more. So let's just talk about the vision, mission, objectives thing real quick. So let me pull that up. And I apologize if I feel like I'm just talking about assignments a lot this class, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and can kind of tackle our assignments early if we want to. So if you go in modules, you can see all of these upcoming assignments for our group project. So you all did your role description and interviewee identification assignment, which was great. Some of you have already completed the leadership interview. Some of you have stuff scheduled and some of you are still working on it. Completely fine. That is not due until May 5th. So still keep it on your radar, but don't panic for that. We did the initiative draft and I will have those finished graded by the end of the week. But I'm just going to give some tips on that one. So I know some groups have really had a good experience and, you know, everyone's put in their own work here and there. In other groups, it might have been a little more stressful. And you're going to learn in this lesson today, it's because leadership styles and work ethic can be very different. I already have seen probably about like 4 different styles in this class. There's some people who like to get all their work done Monday, Tuesday, right? They just like to tackle it all, get it done. Other people are busy during the week and can't get stuff till Sunday. Some people like to sit back and let someone else be in charge and tell them what to do. Other people get frustrated if no one's stepping up and then they do it. Some people just want it all done and will rather just do it themselves. Other people, you know, want to just divvy it up. So there's a lot we're seeing. And so just some effective ways I can see this, I want to help you all. One, there's never anything wrong with over communicating something. You know, instead of, there's nothing wrong with like reaching out to your group and like asking a general question like, you know, hey, what are you all thinking about this or things like that, but sometimes you might not get good answers. So I find that being direct is the best in a situation. You know, maybe you're not getting what you want out of people. So just be like, hi, I'm going to take charge on this. This is a due in a week. Let's divide it up into 4 sections because there's 4 people in our group. My evaluation class is doing this right now and they're further along in the program. So some of them are really good at delegating and managing group projects. So someone might say, for this assignment coming up, there's a mission statement, there's a vision statement, there's objectives, and then there's value statements. So there's 4 people in your group. Maybe Martha, you're like, hey, I really like writing objectives. Do you all care if I write the objectives? And then who wants to write the mission statement, the vision statement, and this? Let's get it all in by Friday at 6. Does that work for you all? And then I would gladly like to review it all and submit it, right? You know, that's taking leadership and getting it done, but you're not doing all the work on your own. And then you're not just leaving your group kind of like out in right field, not knowing what's going on. So that's kind of what I suggest. And then there's that written proof too, right? If say, for example, Martha does all that, and then it's Sunday at 9 p.m. and those sections aren't done yet, but Martha has proof that she communicated with her group, assigned roles, or asked, hey, are you okay with this? But no one did it. And so if Martha just submitted her part, I'm going to give Martha full credit for it because she tried, she did her part, and it is a group project. I don't expect Martha to go, crap, it's 10 p.m. on Sunday night. I guess I just have to do the project myself and submit it. Like, that's not the point. You know, maybe remind your group members like, hey, all I haven't heard from you. Do you want to do this? You know, keep doing that. So that's showing, you know, you giving your group the opportunity to try it and you're still doing stuff. So I don't want someone to feel like they have to do this whole project on their own. And I also don't want you to think that, cool, there's 5 people in my group, I can do nothing and get an A in this class, because that's not the point either, right? I want there to be that middle ground balance there. So hopefully if you are in that situation, it can get better next time. And then maybe some of you already in groups were like, why are you telling me this? Our group was perfect. I have nothing to complain about. And that's awesome. Keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing. And I don't know if I shared this story yet with you all, but I think that it's just so important to do this. My husband and I were just talking about this story. He had to take a epidemiology class as an elective to get into his doctorate program. And he was in this group and no one would do anything. No one would respond to him. He had to write a 20-page paper and give a presentation. And he was just so sick of it. And there were 3 people in his group and he's like, I don't know what to do. And he just wrote the first 10 pages and then emailed his group and said, can you please write 5 pages each? I think this is more than fair. Here's the slides. I created the presentation. See you all in class. And the one student didn't do anything. And the other student, I think, panicked at the last minute and just plagiarized the last 10 pages and submitted it. And they went before, you know, the dean, and those 2 got kicked out of the program because they were plagiarizing, right? And his proof was, I didn't write anything in those last 10 pages. I tried to communicate with my group. It wasn't a me issue. And he was completely fine. So just always communicate, reach out to me if you have any questions for that. But hopefully, you know, this will just be a good experience and you'll get an opportunity to kind of figure out what kind of leader you are in this class. And like, I know like I've been stepping in a little bit for some situations, but I want you all to see, what kind of leader are you? What kind of worker are you? Are you the type of person who just doesn't take it seriously and is just hoping someone else will do it for you? Because that's not really good either, right? And so let's try to improve as students, improve as leaders throughout this class. And that's my goal for you all, this project. So let me pull up the project actually, so you know what I'm talking about. So we are going to create a vision, mission, values, and objectives. So I will give you all feedback based off what you submitted, hopefully by, you know, tomorrow. And you're just going to move forward with the topic you all selected as a group. You came up with solutions, you know, background information, stuff like that. So now we're just going to move forward. And here's a little slide presentation. Dr. Kathy Brown was talking about the importance of mission, vision, and values. And I have a PowerPoint slide here too, if you want to just understand a little bit more about this. But here's a student example I had, and I'll pull that up in a second. But basically all you're going to do is create a PowerPoint slide. And you can write a paper for this if you want, but I think it's just easier to create a PowerPoint presentation now because we have our final presentation at the end of the semester, right? So if you do a really good job on this, you can just keep building on your PowerPoint presentation, right? So keep adding to it if you want. So you're going to create the vision, mission, values, and objectives for your group. You're just going to include the name of your group members and submit it as a PowerPoint presentation and have your reference slides at the end. So this is a group who did this last semester, I believe, if it will load. Canvas always likes to, make a mockery out of me whenever I try to pull up a student example. It's like, I want to load for 18 hours. Should have had it loaded earlier. Let me see if I have a. Let me just see if I can pull up an example I have on my desktop. Any questions about that while I'm pulling it up real quick? Oh, sorry about this. I do have an example in there. I don't know why it's not loading. Let's see. So here's an example. They don't have it in PowerPoint form because before I moved it to PowerPoint example, groups were allowed to they had to write a final paper for this class. So you're welcome. You do not have to write a final paper for this class. You just have to create a final presentation. So that's the good news there. So what they did, which is going to be the same information, right? It's just not in PowerPoint slide yet. So their vision was easily accessible, quality healthcare for all Tennesseans. Just simple, short, right to the point. The mission was to strengthen the health and well-being of rural Tennessee communities by reinforcing existing community outreach efforts and bringing services to marginalized members. So these sound really easy to make, but sometimes you just get in your head and you wordsmith it and you play along with it. So just try to think of something, like catchy, meaningful, things like that. So community values are their values. They came up with 5. I'd keep it around like 4 or 5. I think that would be great. So what do you value? And sometimes people lose points because they just list it. But explain what that actually means, right? So for community driven, for the community, by the community, they give a little description of it. Empowerment, provide the community with tools and resources required to improve and maintain health. And then they came up with objectives. And I just want to explain that these objectives need to be SMART. So they need to be measurable. Right here, you can see collaborate with at least 5 healthcare administrators. So measurable, timely, by the end of the year 2023. Are they specific? So the SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So make sure that you're going through all those things when you're creating your objectives. So, for example, I know that some groups are different in size. So, say you have a group of 3. I would have one person do the vision and mission statement, somebody do the values, somebody do the objectives, something like that. Move forward with that. Or if you don't want to do it like that, sit together, have a meeting, come up with the vision and mission all together. So you're on the same page, not like, oh, that's not fair, just Amber came up with the vision and mission for the project. That's not fair. I wish I could have helped with that. So maybe you have a team meeting and you want to all come up with a vision and mission together, discuss that, and then each of you come up with 2 values on your own and put it all there. And then each of you come up with an objective that you think is important. So just see what you think is best. Communicate with your team about what would be the best way to divvy this up. No right or wrong way, just as long as everybody's doing their part with that. So it's not a lengthy assignment at all, but I do want to make sure you're all on the same page with that. Any questions about that assignment? Okay, pretty self-explanatory. So I hope that you enjoy doing that. All right, next one. This is the one that I always get the most questions on. So I will talk about this again next week. I just like talking about this one over and over again so we all are not confused. Okay, so if you can't see this yet, but if you go to, I will make it available. to you all soon. I just assigned these to you today and you have your email. So first of all, do not share that document with your partner. You each have your own. And the reason why I don't have it on Canvas is because, let me just see an example of whose partners here. Okay, so Elizabeth and Amber are partners, for example. So Amber, Mona, Megan, you guys are all the employer. So you all are conducting an interview. You work at the health department and you are trying to find the best applicant for your role. So that is why you all receive the employer document. So you are not your assigned role. You're not a biostatistician. You're not a analyst. You're not a CEO of a hospital. You all are working at the health department trying to hire someone. Applicants, you are all applying for a job and you know all the background information about you, right? So this is a mock interview. So, Julia, you get to read all the information I sent you about the job and you get to conduct an interview, come up with questions that you would ask Harper, and Harper gets to reply to those questions. Harper gets to ask questions back, have your interview, get to know each other. And then Julia, at the end of it, if you want to, you can offer Harper a job. And this is where it gets fun. You get to offer how many vacation weeks, what the salary is. Do they get to work from home a day or two a week? Do they get maternity or paternity leave? Do they get startup equipment? Do they get relocation equipment, right? So how much do you want to offer them up front, right? That's completely up to you. You don't want to go too high and then you're getting in trouble because you're like, oh no, this isn't in the budget. But you don't want to go too low where you're insulting them and then they're like, no, I'm not taking this job. So this is where I'm giving you freedom to do whatever you want. Sometimes students are a little timid and they're like, can you come up with the interview questions for me? Nope, this is your interview, you're conducting it, you get to ask them what you want based off what you know. Just as I'm not going to tell the applicant how to answer these questions, what they should ask for. But, say for example, I say, Desiree, like, I want to offer you this job. You're going to be starting out at $5 an hour, 1 week vacation. What do you say? You'd probably tell me to take a hike, right? But, maybe someone's a little more timid and they're like, well, can I have $6 an hour, right? Like, and the boss might be going at the end of the day, score. I could have given them $30 an hour and I got away with 6. I think that's way below minimum wage, so you can't do that. That was very an extreme example, but I'm going to tell you, it doesn't hurt to ask. Don't ever just say, yep, sounds good. The worst they can tell you is no, right? And sometimes it's not always money that matters. Maybe it's, with your retirement, maybe it's you have kids and your partner has every Friday off and you're like, can I work Friday from home? Or, something like that. I don't know, like what's most important to you? Because it's not always just salary, right? Benefits, vacation, flexibility, relocation. So think of that stuff. So if you are the person who is the employer, think about how much you're willing to give them, how much you are allowed to give them. I give you some caps. Like, it's not like you're just like, yeah, I'll hire you for $300,000 a year. That's not possible. That's not in the budget, right? So I tell you, this is as high as you can go. And then the person applying for the job, I tell you, like, comfortably, this is what you could live off. This is what you think you're worth. This is what you're going to go for. So, for example, like, maybe the salary is fine with you, but you care more about other things. Maybe you don't really give two craps if you work from home or in the office, but that salary is really important to you. So that's what you're going to talk about, right? Like, I can do that. So this is your opportunity to just have fun and actually practice, because I will tell you, I don't know, has anyone ever had any negotiation experiences with jobs go well, go bad? Amber, if you don't mind, Elizabeth, any of you, do you want to share maybe some things that went well or that you wish you would have done instead?
I recently took a job. I'm an RN. I recently applied for an ER night position and they wanted to start me at a certain hourly. And I was like, no, Basically, I factored in my years of experience and my travel experience, and I came back with a counter offer and they accepted it.
That's amazing. A lot of times they will. My husband just took a job out here, and one thing that you might not think about is like relocation fees or sign-in bonuses and stuff like that too. So because we moved from Indiana out to Arizona, and everything looked good. And for the sign-in bonus, they said you get half with your first paycheck and then the other half like a year later or something silly like that. And he was like, we're moving across the country. Like, is there any way I can get half a month before I start my job and then the other half with my first paycheck? And they said, yeah. So I'm like, phew, that was like when gas was like $20 a gallon, right? And everything was expensive. So like, I mean, they could have said no and we would have figured it out, but it just doesn't hurt to ask that stuff. And I'm glad that you said that, Amber, because life is probably a little more comfortable now with that decision. Elizabeth, did it go good for you, bad for you, learn anything?
Um, I negotiated more work from home
Yeah.
time. So I have two young kids. And so just with remote policies, this is my last job. The current job I have now is fully remote, so it's not a problem. But during COVID, I
Mhm.
worked for a healthcare company and was an essential worker. So I couldn't, we didn't get a lot of the same protections that non-essential workers got. So we had to be there. But I wasn't a clinical staff, so I didn't need to be in the hospitals. But I was able to negotiate like that work from home time because my kids were out of school during
Yeah.
COVID. So what are you going to do? It was more of a I literally can't keep working here if you do not allow flexibility in your work from home policies. So, and there's some companies that just said, see ya. And my own company did that for some positions, but was able to do that. So I think it just depends on who your manager is and how much authority that they have to influence, like to make that decision. Because some managers would have definitely liked to have allowed employees to do that, but had no authority up their executive chain of command.
Right.
And others had different authority. And so I think that also just depends.
Great, thank you. Yeah, like another thing you might not think of. So when I interviewed for this job, like everything looked great on my end. I obviously work virtually, which is wonderful for my life at the moment. But the only thing I thought to ask for, I was like, can I please have a desktop monitor and a laptop and a keyboard? And they're like, yeah, sure. I mean, it was beneficial on their end. I'm doing all this stuff. So like, but I was like, my new laptops are expensive. And like, I want something that'll be reliable. And so that's what, I thought to ask for because I'm like, can't negotiate relocation fees. I'm working from home and I already have my house, vacation time. Professors, you get vacation time when your students are like, what I'm going to say, hey, can I take a month off in February? That wouldn't make sense, right? They'd be like, maybe you want to consider a new career. You can't just leave during the semester. So, you have to think what's best for that job. So let me pull up who your partners are. And so you can all see this. So you are the applicant if you're on the left, and you should have received an email from me. You are an employer if you are on the right. I tried to give you all different people to work with that were outside of your group. I might have had people who are with people that I already worked with, but hopefully it gives you an opportunity to work with someone new. Andrew, sorry, I always keep putting Philip down, but Jessica, you and Andrew will be partners there, and I think I have everyone in the class listed. If you see yourself twice, please let me know, or if you don't see yourself, let me know as well. But if you want, if your partner is here, maybe just send them a chat privately or in the group, just with your email address or phone number with the best way to communicate with them. Or if you're having trouble reaching out to your partner, just please let me know and I can send an introductory email as well. So I'll keep that up for one more second for you there. So what are you going to do? And somebody please remind me if I don't have this available. I'll volunteer Desiree. She always keeps me on my toes for this. But so you have your partner, you read that document I signed to you, and you're going to go in this pre-negotiation document. And this is due before you do your interview with your classmates. So you're just going to complete this individually before you do the interview or interviewed. So what are some starting salaries for other similar positions? So, you know, you're gonna read the rule about the health educator. Like, what is the starting salary for this? Is it 40 grand? Is it 70 grand? Like, what is out there that is the appropriate range? And then Sam is the person who is interviewing. So you are Sam or you're interviewing Sam. So what gives Sam an edge for this position? So you're going to go through and write, why do you think Sam would be a good fit for this position? Or if you are Sam, say why you think you are a good fit for this position. And who are the participants in the negotiation? So think about it there a little bit. Obviously, the person conducting the interview, the person getting interviewed, but is there anybody else? Maybe a family member, someone who is in charge of the person conducting the interview? Think outside of the box a little bit, like who really matters in this situation? What is the situation? What's the reason for the negotiation? What are the issues for you in this situation? So you're going to see in your example that there might be a few issues, like maybe this is all we can offer the employer. They might say no because they're looking for more. Or, you know, the person being interviewed, my issue is that I like this job. I'm making this up. I don't even know. But it's a 40-minute drive and gas is expensive. And I don't know if I want to be on the road that long, you know, things like that. So you're just going to go through and answer these questions that you see here. It doesn't have to be anything long. I apologize if I don't. Yeah, 2 to 3 pages, double space, 12-point font. So what I would just suggest you do, you don't have to write it in like narrative format, like a, you know, APA paper or anything. You can just download this document and type starting salaries for this position are X, Y, and Z, you know, and this is already 2 pages, right? So if you just answer these questions underneath, you'll easily hit that 2 to 3 page. I think some students do say like, I'm panicking. I'm already at 4 pages. Is that a problem? That's okay. I don't feel like you have to write 6, 7, 8 pages by any means, but if you go over, don't panic for this, but I think everyone should easily hit 2 to 3 pages for that. So what do you think? Sound fun? Oh yeah, Martha's excited. That's all that matters. So that's what we're gonna work on that. And so I just encourage you, you know, the next week or two to fill out that document, get it submitted. I don't think it's even due until after spring break. And then we have class time off so you can conduct that interview with someone. I do not want to hear, well, we didn't have any time to meet because you have a month's notice right now before it's due. And then let me pull up our next schedule of meetings. So we have, we meet next week for the lesson. March 12th is spring break. We meet again the 19th. And then March 26th, I have that time to conduct that interview with your partner. So I think the document you fill out in your own is due March 24th, and then the following week is your results from that. So we'll talk about next steps after next week. So I don't want to put too much on your plate right now. So read the email I sent you and start filling out that worksheet. Maybe introduce yourself to your partner, and that's all I really have for you this week. And then we'll talk about, okay, once we're done with that, what do we do next? So don't really conduct the interview yet, unless if you really want to reach out to me and I'll make sure you're ready for that. And of course, I'll make that page ready. I'll move it up into an earlier module, but I didn't just want to put it in before class and you're all panicking. What is this assignment that we just have there? So I wanted to explain that first. All right, feeling good on these upcoming assignments? Okay, as always, send me any emails if you have questions about that. All right, so we are looking at leadership theories this week. I'm going to keep this pretty brief. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. I think this is an important topic. So again, here's the list of everybody and your partner if you missed it. All right, so there's a lot of different leadership styles. Some people like to lead by giving a lot of freedom and flexibility and letting them do their thing. Other people like to be more task-oriented and supervising and watch and tell. There's lots of different ones out there. Some are very favorable, some are very unfavorable. Some kind of just depends on the situation, and the leadership style can change based on the job, who you're working with, things like that. So the first one we're going to look at, this is on page 199 where there was an example talking about it. And I thought this would just be a fun one to do in class rather than a discussion board. But so for this one, very unfavorable would be the leader-member relations are very poor, right? The leader's never around. They don't really care about you. They don't ask for your input. They just tell you what to do. A very good example would be the leader knows your name. They ask you for your input. They care about you. Obviously you can see the task structure is high and the power position is very strong. They're a good leader. They're powerful. They have the knowledge, skills, and ability to help you in that situation. So this is a very common situation that we see sometimes in situations. Some people who are maybe lower on the totem pole might have this idea that I don't want to do more work than I have to because they're the boss, they make more than me, they don't care about me, they can figure it out themselves, right? And that's not the situation we want to be in. So I'm going to read an example for you. If you have your textbook and want to follow along with me, it's on page 199. But I just want you to listen to this and have a couple of you share how you think this could be solved. So just before quitting time, Joe, the hospital's health information department manager, watched his 3 new trainees struggling with the complicated electronic medical record software they have to learn to do their jobs. Across the room, Betty, who is an expert with software, was preparing to leave for the day. Her tasks were done ahead of time as usual. Also, she gathered her belongings and left without saying goodbye, as usual. There goes the answer to my problem, thought Joe. If only I knew how to reach her. With her expertise and experience in using the system, Betty would seem to be an ideal coach for the new employees. However, she had asked not to take on any training duties when Joe asked her. Her reasons were that she wasn't comfortable telling anyone else what to do, didn't want the responsibility for someone else's work, and preferred to work by herself. Joe was stunned by her refusal. He enjoyed helping his coworkers and thought that it was why he advanced and she did not, even though she had more seniority and experience with the company. Since her work was excellent, Joe hesitated to make it an either you do what I want or you're in trouble situation. He believed that employees worked best at what they wanted to work at. But the problem remained. There was no money in the training budget, and there were no other employees skilled enough as Betty was. Was there an approach he hadn't thought of to convince her to help? As Betty walked to the hospital's parking lot, she thought, how could Joe think I'd lift a finger to help him? I thought I would have been the one promoted. Not him. I'm the one of seniority and the necessary experience. In fact, I was the one who trained him. Just because he has a master's in health information management, and I should not have been the determining factor. But obviously, senior management thought so and selected him over me. I could care less what happens at this point forward. I only have 5 more years until I can retire with my full pension. As long as my work continues to be excellent, there's no way Joe can upset my plans. Not that he could, since he doesn't even understand the complexity of the software we use. It requires a person with a lot of technology, knowledge, and experience. All right, so for those of you who zoned me out for the last 2 minutes, basically the boss, Joe, he has 3 employees that don't know what the heck they're doing. He has an awesome employee named Betty, but Betty is very frustrated because she feels that she was overlooked for a promotion and she doesn't want to help because she's like, I don't care. I retire soon. Figure it out. You're the boss. You take care of it. And there's no budget to hire her to train these people. So what do you think could be done in this situation? Is he kind of just, I guess she's just doing good work and she's going to do it for 5 years and but he needs these 3 people trained, right? But he doesn't know how to do it. And Betty doesn't really care for Joe. Well, how do you think Joe could improve the situation? What would you do if you were Joe? Or if you were Betty, what would you hope Joe would do?
That way, is that correct?
What was that?
It doesn't, hold on, never mind.
Nope, you're good. Sorry, I didn't hear you at first.
It doesn't seem like Joe knows that Betty feels that way, is that correct?
Correct, yes. Yes. Because Betty kind of lied to him. Betty said that she doesn't feel comfortable telling someone what to do, but in reality, Betty's thinking, why would I lift a finger for that guy? I was supposed to be the one who got promoted.
So I think you have to start with having a discussion with Betty, is there a reason you don't want to interact? Is there something else going on? Maybe you need to have another person there with that discussion, but I feel like they're not really communicating very well at all.
I think so too. I think that Joe is afraid he's gonna lose Betty because if Betty leaves, he's in trouble, right? He doesn't understand it. So I think he's afraid of Betty, getting mad at him. But he needs to have a conversation with Betty, or it's gonna be a very uncomfortable 5 years. And I think, sometimes just showing you care and are approachable can go a really long way. Like, why doesn't he take Betty out to lunch one day? Betty, I appreciate everything you're doing for our department. I think you are so knowledgeable. Can I take you out to lunch as a thank you? And maybe just get to know her better. And I ask like our nannies this all the time. Like I like, 'cause sometimes my son can be a little terror. Or I can just say something like, hey, like, what can I do to make your job easier here? Or are things going okay on your end? So like, is there anything I need? And like sometimes it's honestly just something silly. Like we had a lady who was over here and she was like, she's like, could you just maybe have some bottles of water here? Sure. And then she's super happy. She just had her bottle of water, right? Like, like it just like sometimes you have to ask or maybe you think that everything's good and it's not. And so I think just showing you care, you appreciate her because like Betty, like, you are telling her like, you have an incredible skill set and there's a generation under you that doesn't understand it. Would you mind like helping, with this? And we don't have it in the budget, but what are some things that I could do? Or, guess what? If we train them to do these things, then it can take this task off your plate because they're going to know how to do it. Or, there's a lot of ways to approach it, but I don't think sometimes it's my way or the highway is the best approach. Like, especially like, because one, she might get mad and quit, or you don't want someone, you want to have a good relationship with the people you work with every day. So I think I saw Liz, you were nodding your head with like the takeout to lunch. Were you thinking something similar like that, or?
Oh, I just think of I just think for all of us, like having that interaction and understanding, I think that there's a lot of assumptions that are happening in this situation.
Mhm.
And so there just seems to be a breakdown of communication. So anything that could be done to like have a better conversation. So I just really like the idea of taking it in a different place. So sometimes I think you can just have like a more open conversation if you're in the space of the person that has less power.
Mhm.
Maybe you could get a more transparent response because clearly this was not an expected response. So somewhere in that, there's been a breakdown of communication or understanding. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not Joe's fault he got the position, right? And like I would hope that they could have a better relationship moving forward. And I like how you mentioned there are a lot of assumptions going on in this scenario, right? Like none of it's factual. It's just, he said, she said, I don't know what to do. So awesome. Thanks for that. Go back to this. Okay, so am I sharing this? Yes, I am. Okay, so another example, so sometimes people like to have it more oriented on, like the students lead or the employees lead, and I kind of take a seat back. But other people suggest that sometimes that's not always the best approach. So considering the captain of an airliner during a final landing, we would hardly want the captain to turn to the crew for discussion on how to land the plane, right? So there's a time and place for these activities. Like, could you imagine if you were on the table for surgery and the surgeon just looks around and goes, all right, I don't know, man. What do you think? What blade should I use for surgery today? Or, anesthesia. What do you think? Like, you sometimes like a leader does need to make those important decisions and quick, and then they need to know when would this be a good learning opportunity or when could I include the group on it? And know there's a time and place for it. Here's just another one. I'm not going to discuss this too much, but this is just saying that leadership styles are adaptable depending on the environment you're in, your staff you're with, what your goals and outcomes you want that to be, and recognizing that. You know, like I don't, if any of you are parents, for example, like you know that like some strategies work better on other kids than you know others. Like I can get away with doing this with my son, but not my youngest son, or vice versa, like that. So you have to use that when you're in leadership as well. Like maybe some people like, you know, the tough love or this or that, and other people don't do well with that. So here's just some examples I had. And if anyone has an example of their life when they had a really good leader or bad leader in their life, feel free to share. I'll just say a couple real quick. So when I was a graduate assistant, I worked at this place called Hospital Council, and the CEO would randomly buy like too much lunch for himself. And I was always like, wow, this guy's really bad at placing orders, until I realized it was strategic. Like, I bought 2 sandwiches. Do you want one of them? And then you like sit in your office and talk and see how your experience was. Or, hey, I'm ordering pizza. What's your favorite topping? And you know, and like, and I thought that was so cool, hindsight, that like the CEO of a company cared enough about a graduate student to do that, right? When I worked at the movie theaters, this is such a silly example, but I remember this one kid, he was like younger than me, probably like 16. I was like 17. You know, he got a promotion to usher supervisor. And I remember like he just thought he was so cool, and was just like, before I was leaving, he's like, you need to go clean the bathrooms now before you leave. And I'm like, whoa, sir. And I just didn't have respect for him after that. Like I was just like, you know, could he was like, hey, Amy, like you're the only female employee here. Do you mind cleaning the bathrooms before you leave? I'd appreciate it. I'd say, yeah, it's my job. Thank you. I will go do that, right? No hard feelings, but that authoritative, you do this, I'm the boss, like sometimes doesn't really work well for people. And then that dynamic can be weird. My husband, he's more authoritative, can be very direct, where I'm more passive in leadership roles sometimes. So he had a student who was texting him, because he does the student schedules for the anesthesia students. And the one girl basically just said like, hey, I only want, like, I think they're required to do 4 days a week. Hey, I only am going to do 3 days a week just because it just works better with my lifestyle. And I don't like being in the OR past 7. So I'm just going to do this. And like, he like straight up told her like, maybe you need to figure this out and have a career change, because if you can't be over past 7 and only want to work 3 days a week, like maybe this isn't the profession for you, right? Which is very true. And she like was like, no, I think you misunderstood me, and like called back, and he was like, they're able to get on the same page, right? But you know, sometimes, you know, you have to be a little direct with people, where I sometimes can be very passive, like, okay, I guess if you really need to do 3 days a week, but that wouldn't have helped her with her career, right? She wouldn't have learned as much. Like when you're a student, you have to gain all that knowledge, and then it's not fair for the other students who are working 4 days a week. And he's very good at like, these are the rules, let's get it done, or you're not going to be good at your job. And then another one I had to, like, I had a boss one time at an old job, and I asked for, I never take time off. And I remember asking like, hey, can I leave this retreat just an hour early? It was scheduled after I already told her I had plans. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem at all. And then I remember when I was like getting ready to leave early, she just had this huge attitude with me, and like almost was like throwing a hissy fit that I had, like, she's like, just go. And I remember thinking like, wow, like I don't really like this work environment. Like I don't like to be treated that way. So sometimes just the way you treat people can really impact their work ethic. Like I was just like, I mean, I liked my job and I cared about what I did, but I almost was kind of just like, you expect me to want to put in extra hours and work for you, and I asked for one thing off and you treated me that way. So has anyone ever had like a really strong leader that like, they're like, I want to be like you, or I appreciate what you do, or just a bad leader that maybe just really put them off?
I feel like I'm talking all the time, but I feel like have had a lot of jobs. So
You have
I've
real
had a
life
lot.
experience.
I have had a lot of bosses. Um, I've had some very good bosses. It's sometimes harder, I think, to pinpoint the thing that the good boss did,
Yeah.
other than empowering people to do their jobs, and putting them in a position to learn and grow and do the things that they enjoy. But I have had I think like really challenging bosses, you can that's sometimes hard too, but like as an example, I had a boss at a job that the job itself was amazing. It was one of the coolest jobs I ever did. I was just going back to work after having stayed home for a few years with my kids, and I was nervous about getting back into working again. And but so there was just this cool job, and you put on these festivals in town. It should just be fun. It's not that serious. And had a boss that would just constantly pile like extra work on, um, but not be appreciative,
Yeah.
but then always take credit for the work that was being done. Just like the definition of a narcissist. And so was really great though in the interview process, like very, you know, just outgoing, seemingly like this is going to be so wonderful and we're going to do amazing things together. And then you get in, and then all of a sudden, now that you're working there, and there is this power dynamic of this person of like, oh no, you need to live your life here. And it just seems like there have been jobs that seem mundane or have had an amazing boss. And even though the job itself, like that, the activities day to day might have been boring, but was more fulfilling than a job that was like the activities that you do every day should have been super fun, but you were just miserable because of the person who you reported to.
I love that. That is so true. The person you report to can totally influence the dynamic of the job. They can make a boring job like fulfilling, and a great job if the leadership's poor or the employees, like you're not going to enjoy doing it. I know I have a lot of examples here, but I remember even like I had an amazing job that I did. It was part-time program evaluation, and I loved it. And I worked with this person for about like 8 years, and it makes me really sad to honestly talk about it to this day. I remember, I was pregnant, I was having a kid, and I said like, hey, I want to take at least 5 months off from doing any projects and just really enjoy my time, like being a new mom. And this person always worked me very hard. And I never say no. I'm a hard worker. And I remember it was like I was working to the point where I was like 39 weeks pregnant, and I had a high risk pregnancy. And I told this person many times, like, I need to not do all this stuff. To the point where one time texting me at 8 p.m. saying they needed something due by midnight, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. And I remember my husband took my phone from me and said, absolutely, actually, it wouldn't have been Super Bowl Sunday. My son was born in February or in December. That wouldn't make sense. Maybe it was, I don't know, it was something important going on. And he took my phone. Oh, maybe it was a playoff game or something. And he said, no, you're not responding to him. He will figure it out. Nothing's that important. You need to get this done to him by midnight. He sends an email out to the entire group. I'm really concerned about Dr. Watering. I usually hear from her right away. I don't know what's going on. Maybe because you reply, and because I just always did it. And then after I had the baby, I was getting text messages. It's like 1 week postpartum. I need you to call me right now for 10 minutes to chat about this. Text, are you free? Are you free? And I'm like, you don't respect the fact that I asked for just 5 months off, and I would have gladly jumped back in. And then I got like an email like, I'm sensing you don't want to work with me. If you don't reply by this date, I'm deleting your email and all this stuff. And I typed out this big email, and then I was like, it's not worth it. They don't care. And then they deleted all my stuff, and we don't talk till this day anymore. And it makes me very sad because I love that job. I love working with that person, but the leadership just turned poor. And all I asked was just, can I be a mom for 5 months? And that wasn't okay. And so like, and then, yeah, so sometimes the way you do treat people can have an impact on that as well. So that wasn't a sad story. I'm okay. I'm happy. I love my job, but that's happened. Desiree, did you have a comment, or are you just showing me your face?
I had an example of a bad leadership. So I was working with the hospital as a comparative pathology assistant, and with this hospital, I experienced some like racial allegation, racial like things personally that affected me like mentally.
Yeah.
So when you're in pathology, you deal with a lot of like diseases, animals that might have like Helicobacter disease that can literally kill you, kill humans and things like that. So the doctors that I was working with, they didn't care to clean up behind themselves. They didn't care that I had to sit there and clean up the entire lab by myself. And it's just like, I was reporting to the doctors in a particular lab manager. So it was kind of like hard for me to kind of like adapt to that particular environment. So I tried to up, but when I spoke up, she was saying that I was asking too many questions and that I don't need to ask any questions. And so I had to create a binder for myself for me to prevent myself from asking questions. So like this particular leadership was not like I wasn't able to communicate, wasn't able to speak up, um, and kind of like affected me a lot because when they hired another girl, she had an MPH, and she was Caucasian. So when they hired her, it was all she's great, she's amazing, and I never got like a comment or anything. She did not have to clean up. She did not have to do any of the any of the blood stuff I had to deal with. None of that. She was basically just sitting on her butt, like, not doing anything. And so I honestly just wrote up a resignation letter because I would come home every night stressed out, crying, feeling like, dang, I'm putting in all this energy and nobody's um telling me, Desiree, you done sat there, you done created whole systems for us. You done sat there and created organizational things for us and things like that. And nobody has ever said thank you there.
Yeah.
So like I had to sit there and literally be like, you know what, for me, for my mental health, for me to stop stressing, because I end up actually having heart problems after that. So like for me to stop stressing, for me to, do better with myself, I had to literally let it go. I love the job, don't get me wrong, because
Right.
I love doing necropsies. I love looking at organs, drawing blood and things like that. However, I had to leave it, for my forsake. So that would be like a style of like bad leadership. Making your people feeling like they can't communicate, they can't speak up, making them feel as if they're nobody, basically.
Right. And then
So that was like a
treating
bad
them
experience that I really had.
and then definitely the treating other employees, differently. That's not fair as well. All right, we got one more minute. I'm sorry. This has been a good topic. We could cover this in 2 classes. Harper, go ahead if you had a comment still.
Yeah, and I'll make this really fast. I actually work at the campus gym at the University of Tennessee, and about the leadership there, there's been problems with, at a college gym, there's a lot of cases of harassment and sexual harassment there towards patrons and employees.
Wow.
There was a time where a lot of the female staff were being harassed, myself included, and our professional staff, our bosses, actually took the sides of the harassers instead of their employees. And so they weren't doing anything about it, and it was becoming very unsafe to even work there. And the school just was not doing anything, and they kept allowing them in. Even if they weren't students that couldn't even go, they would still let them in, and they were all harassing us. And so I would put together a group and talk to them and say, like, this needs to change. We don't feel safe. And they actually threatened, my job was threatened because of that. And so they created a place of where you cannot give feedback there. And they do try to promote like, oh, we protect our students, we let them give us feedback, but they actually yell at us or get mad if we do have anything to say about the area there. And so that's just, when we speak about leadership, I always think, one, they showed me exactly what I do not want to be as a leader.
That's how you learn sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then two, I think a good leader should be able to accept feedback, but also respect and protect their employees. So that was just an example of a negative leadership experience.
Thank you, Harper. I'm sorry you experienced that, but sometimes we experience terrible things, so we know not to ever do it to people again. And so hopefully you can use that to make something good out of it, even though that should have never happened. I know we're over in time. I just always think it's great to end on Michael Scott quotes if we can. So, he, I think, is a terrible boss, but he loves his employees, right? So sometimes you have to take a break from being the kind of boss that always is trying to teach people things and just be the boss of dancing. Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. And granted, maybe this was not the best idea, but at least we care enough about our employees that we are willing to fight for them. So I think, Harper, your boss could have learned from that. Another thing we don't have time to dive into is, if any of you ever watch Suits, here's a link in the chat. We had a great discussion about this last semester, talking about the leadership styles of Harvey versus Lewis. If you like Suits, I think this is an excellent article, and it talks about, how like Elon Musk is more like Harvey Specter and Jeff Bezos is more like Louis Litt, which obviously Elon and Jeff are, billionaires and have great corporations and stuff like that. So that's just something you can look at. I'll post it in the module as well if you want to take a peek at that. But I know I teach a lot of you again at 7:15, so I'll give you a break to go grab a snack or just take a walk real quick. I'll be around if anyone has questions. Otherwise, I'm going to stop recording and